The silence of space broke like glass when the emergency signal arrived. Commander Park Suman was drinking his morning coffee at Luna Station when the alarm started screaming. The massive screens around him lit up with urgent red warnings. And his peaceful morning turned into something much more serious. "Commander, we're getting something strange," called out Lieutenant Kim Hyjin from her station. Her fingers danced across the controls as she tried to make sense of the incoming data. "It's not from any human ship or station. This is ... different." Park set down his coffee and walked over to the main display. The computer was working hard to decode the strange signal, running it through every language database they had. After several tense minutes, an image appeared on the screen that made everyone in the room stop talking. The being on the screen looked nothing like a human. It was tall and thin, with skin so clear you could almost see through it. Its eyes were huge and dark, filled with a fear so deep it made Park's stomach turn. When it spoke, its voice shook with terror. "Please, whoever gets this message, we need your help," the alien said through the translation system. "We are the Villani people. Our home is in the Kepler 442 star system. Our worlds are dying. They're machines, terrible machines, and they eat everything. They consume our cities, our people, everything we have built." The alien's voice cracked as it continued. "Our great fleets are destroyed. Our strongest warriors are dead. Our planets burn while we watch helplessly, we have heard. Stories, whispers, really? About a warrior race from the forbidden part of space. They call you Deathworlders. They say you come from Earth, a world so dangerous, it creates monsters." Park felt his heart beating faster. The alien was talking about humans. After all these years of being treated like dangerous animals by the galactic community, someone was actually asking for their help. "If you can hear this message, please help us," the alien begged. "We know the galaxy fears you. We know they call you savage and violent. But we have nowhere else to turn. These machines cannot be stopped by normal means. Maybe only monsters can fight monsters." The transmission ended, leaving the control room in complete silence. Everyone stared at the screen, trying to process what they had just seen. Finally, Lieutenant Kim spoke up. "Sir, I'm reading massive energy signatures from the Kepler system. Whatever's attacking them, it's huge. The energy readings are off the charts." Park nodded slowly. For 50 years, humanity had been stuck in their own solar system. The galactic community had built a wall around them, saying humans were too dangerous to be allowed out. They called Earth a death world, a planet so violent and harsh that it created a race of natural killers. The other aliens had fleets that moved like dancers through space, fighting with honor and rules. They used energy weapons that looked like beautiful light shows. It treated war like an art form, something to be done with grace and dignity. But humans fought to survive. They fought dirty when they had to. They used tricks, traps, and whatever it took to win. The aliens thought this made humans monsters. Now, for the first time in decades, someone was asking for those monsters to help. Park looked around the room at his crew. These were good people, trained soldiers and scientists who had spent their careers watching the stars and wondering what was out there. They had all grown up knowing that the galaxy considered them too dangerous to join. "Kim, get me a direct line to Fleet Command on Earth," Park ordered. "Priority Alpha." "Yes, sir," she replied, her fingers flying over the controls. Connection established. Park took a deep breath. He was about to change history. "Fleet Command, this is Luna Station. We have received a distress call from an alien species. They're under attack by hostile machines and requesting military assistance." There was a pause on the other end. "Luna Station, did you say aliens are asking for our help?" "That's correct, sir. The Villani people of the Kepler system. They specifically mentioned Earth's reputation as Deathworlders. They want us to help them fight these machines." Another pause. Longer this time. "Understood. Luna Station. Sending." This upped the chain immediately. This could change everything. Park looked out at the stars through the station's windows. Somewhere out there, an entire civilization was dying while waiting for help. The galaxy had spent decades calling humans monsters, keeping them locked away like dangerous animals. "Tell them the galaxy finally needs its monsters," Park said quietly into the com. Deep underground beneath the busy streets of Seoul, Fleet Admiral Lee Ji-hoon walked into the most secure room on Earth. The war room was a massive space filled with glowing screens and holographic displays that showed every corner of human space. Today, those screens showed something that had never been seen before: an alien asking for help. The room was packed with Earth's top military leaders, scientists, and intelligence officers. Everyone looked serious as they studied the Volani distress signal that had arrived just hours ago. The alien's terrified face still glowed on the main screen. Frozen in a moment of desperate hope, Dr. Choi Min-ho, Earth's leading expert on alien cultures, stood up first. He had spent his entire career studying the few scraps of information humanity had gathered about the galaxy beyond their solar system. Most of it wasn't very flattering. "Admiral, I need to tell you exactly what the aliens think of us," Dr. Choi said, pulling up a classified report. "The Galactic Council has labeled Earth as a Class 12 death world. That's the highest danger rating they have. To put that in perspective, they consider us more dangerous than planets with acid rain, constant earthquakes, and predators the size of skyscrapers." The room fell silent. Everyone knew humans were considered dangerous by galactic standards, but hearing the actual classification was sobering. "They call us apex predators," Dr. Choi continued. "According to their reports, Earth is a nightmare planet where constant warfare, natural disasters, and evolutionary pressure created a race of natural killers. They believe we evolved specifically to be the most dangerous beings in the galaxy." General Nam So-young, a tough woman who had spent 30 years in the military, leaned forward in her chair. "What do they know about our fighting methods?"
"Almost nothing,"
Dr. Choi replied. "Their entire military doctrine is based on energy weapons, defensive shields, and something they call honor combat. They fight according to rules, almost like it's a formal duel. They've never encountered kinetic weapons, guns that fire actual bullets or shells. They've never seen guerrilla tactics or psychological warfare." Captain Yang Dong-hyeon, one of Earth's top strategic analysts, activated a holographic display showing the Kepler system. "The aliens have been fighting these harvester machines for 6 months. 17 entire worlds have been consumed. Their technology somehow adapts to energy-based attacks, making conventional weapons useless after the first few encounters." The display showed recorded footage from the alien battles. Their ships were beautiful, flowing like artwork through space. They fired beams of pure energy that looked like rainbow lights. Everything was coordinated, elegant, and completely ineffective against the mechanical swarms. "The entire galactic fleet couldn't stop these machines," Yang continued. "Millions of ships, thousands of different species, all fighting with their advanced energy weapons. Complete failure." Admiral Lee studied the tactical data with the eye of someone who had spent 40 years in the military. He had fought in every major conflict Earth had seen in the past 2 decades, the water wars to the asteroid mining conflicts. He understood something the aliens didn't. Sometimes you had to fight dirty to win. "The aliens are scared of us," Admiral Lee said quietly. "According to their intelligence files, they think we're savages who eat our enemies and wage war for pleasure. They believe we're so violent that we fight each other for entertainment." Dr. Choi nodded grimly. "Their reports describe humans as creatures who turn their entire planet into a training ground for violence. They think we see war as a natural state of being, not something to be avoided." "In a way, they're not completely wrong, General," Nam said. "We did evolve on a planet that was constantly trying to kill us. Every generation of humans had to be tougher, smarter, and more adaptable than the last, just to survive." Captain Yang pulled up more tactical information. "But here's the interesting part. These harvester machines seem to be purely logical. They adapt to patterns, learn from repeated attacks, and counter known strategies. They're probably programmed to expect rational, predictable military doctrine, which means they've never faced anything like human tactics," Admiral Lee realized. "They're expecting honor combat and energy weapons. They're not prepared for kinetic weapons, ramming attacks, or pure chaos." The room buzzed with quiet conversations. As the implications sank in, for 50 years humanity had been isolated because they were considered too dangerous. Now, That reputation might be exactly what was needed to save an entire civilization. Admiral General Nam said, "The aliens are desperate enough to call for help from the galaxy's boogeyman. They know we're considered monsters, but they're willing to risk it." Admiral Lee stood up and looked around the room at Earth's finest military minds. These were people who had spent their careers preparing for threats that might never come. Now, they had a chance to prove that humanity's reputation was earned through strength, not cruelty. Then it's time to show them what Deathworlders can do, Admiral Lee declared, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had never backed down from a fight. "Mobilize the fleet. All of it." The activation orders spread across the solar system like wildfire. Within hours, every human military installation from Mercury to the outer asteroid belt was buzzing with activity. For the first time in 50 years, humanity was preparing for war beyond their home system. Captain Lim Jae-sung had been drinking his morning coffee when the alert came through. Now, 12 hours later, he stood on the bridge of the heavy cruiser Iron Fist, watching the most incredible sight he had ever seen. Through the massive viewports, hundreds of ships were gathering in formation around Mars' orbit. "I've never seen anything like this," whispered Lieutenant Commander Park Yeon-soo, staring out at the assembling fleet. "Look at them all, the ships. Emerging from hidden facilities would have given any alien nightmares." These weren't the elegant, flowing vessels that other species used. Human warships looked exactly like what they were, weapons designed to kill. The dreadnoughts were massive, angular beasts covered in armor plating. Their hulls bristled with railguns, missile launchers, and point defense systems. "Mars Control is reporting final launch sequence," called out Communications Officer Han Min-jae. "The Thunderbolt and Lightning are clearing the shipyards now." Lim watched as two of humanity's newest destroyers emerged from the massive construction facilities orbiting Mars. These ships were sleek and fast, designed to get in close and hit hard. Behind them came the cruisers' tough, versatile ships that could handle any mission thrown at them. "Captain, we're getting reports from across the system," Park announced. "The asteroid mining stations are releasing their patrol ships. Even the deep space research vessels are being recalled and armed." The scale of the mobilization was staggering. Every human ship capable of faster-than-light travel was being pressed into service. Cargo haulers were being fitted with missile pods. Civilian transports were being converted into troop carriers. Even the luxury passenger liners were being armed with defensive weapons. "Engineering report," Lim called out over the ship's intercom. "All systems are green, Captain," came the reply from Chief Engineer Song Hae-won. "The magnetic acceleration cannons are charged and ready. We've got enough ammunition to fight for weeks." That was the key difference between human ships and alien vessels. While the aliens used energy weapons that drew power from their reactors, humans used kinetic weapons, guns that fired actual physical projectiles. The aliens had never seen anything like it. "Their shields are designed to deflect energy beams," Lim explained to his bridge crew. "But a tungsten rod moving at a significant fraction of light speed, that's going to punch right through their defenses?" Down in the engineering bay, Chief Petty Officer Kim Tae-won was supervising the loading of special ammunition. The weapons. Crews worked carefully, handling each shell with respect. These weren't just explosives. They were specially designed to fight mechanical enemies. "Make sure every ship gets a full load of EMP warheads," Kim called out to his team. "If these harvester machines are truly mechanical, an electromagnetic pulse might shut them down completely." The electromagnetic pulse weapons were a human innovation. While other species had developed energy shields and armor, they had never needed to defend against weapons that could fry electronic systems. The aliens fought with honor and precision. Humans fought to win, Captain announced Navigator Lee Seung-ho. "We're receiving final coordinates from Fleet Command. The Kepler system is approximately 800 light-years from here. Travel time at maximum speed will be 17 days. Lim nodded. 17 days to reach a species that might already be extinct. 17 days to prepare for a battle against an enemy that had defeated the combined might of the Galactic Fleet. "Signal all ships," Lim ordered. "Final systems check in 30 minutes, then we jump to hyperspace." The fleet continued to grow. as ships arrived from every corner of the solar system. The final count was over 300 vessels, the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. Battleships, cruisers, destroyers, frigates, and support ships formed into battle groups. "You know what the best part is?" Park said quietly, watching the formation take shape. "The aliens think we're monsters. They have no idea what we're really capable of." "Maybe that's for the best," Lim replied. "Let them think we're savage killers. When we show up to save their civilization, it'll mean more." The hyperspace jump began with a flash of light that could be seen from Earth. One by one, the ships disappeared into the void, carrying with them the hopes of an entire alien species. The fleet was heading into the unknown, facing an enemy that had proven unstoppable. But they were human. They were the children of a death world, raised on a planet that had tried to kill them for millions of years. They had survived ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, and countless wars. They had learned to fight dirty, to use every advantage, and to never give up. The galaxy was about to learn why Earth was considered so dangerous. The Deathworlders were coming, and they were bringing their fury with them. The moment the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace, everyone knew. They were too late to prevent the disaster. The Kepler system spread out before them like a vision from hell. What should have been a peaceful star system with thriving worlds was now a war zone of unimaginable destruction. Captain Moon Byung-ho stood on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel Harmony, staring at the main screen in shock. His job was to make first contact with alien species, but he had never imagined it would be under these circumstances. The long-range sensors were painting a picture that made his stomach turn. "Captain," whispered Communications Officer Han Soo-jin, her voice barely audible over the bridge's quiet hum. "The sensors are picking up massive energy signatures. There are millions of ships out there, all fleeing toward us." The refugee fleet was unlike anything humans had ever seen. The alien ships looked more like works of art than military vessels. They had flowing organic curves and surfaces that seemed to shimmer with their own light. Some were shaped like enormous flowers, others like graceful birds with wings spread wide. Even in their desperate flight, they were beautiful. But behind them, the inner planets of the system told a different story. 3 worlds that had once been home to billions of beings were now burning. The atmosphere of the closest planet glowed, with fires that could be seen from space. The second planet looked like someone had carved geometric patterns into its surface. The third was barely recognizable as a planet at all. "Dear God," Han Soo-jin said, her hand shaking as she worked her controls. How many people lived on those worlds? According to our intelligence briefing, about 12 billion Villani across all 3 planets, Moon replied grimly. And now they're all trying to escape in whatever ships they could find. The refugee ships were packed far beyond their normal capacity. Long-range scans showed thousands of beings crammed into spaces designed for hundreds. Families huddled together in cargo holds, children pressed against viewports, looking back at the homes they would never see again. "Captain, I'm getting emergency transmissions from multiple ships," Han reported. "They're asking for help. Medical emergencies, ships running out of fuel, life support failing." Moon made a decision that would change everything. "Open a channel to the nearest refugee ship. Let's see if we can talk to them." Response was immediate. The main screen flickered and showed a being that looked like it was made of living crystal. Its body was translucent, with light moving through it like water, but its large, dark eyes showed pure terror. "Unknown vessels, please identify yourselves," the alien said in rapid panic tones. "Are you more machines? We have no weapons. Left, no defenses. Please, we are just trying to escape." Moon took a deep breath. This was it. First contact between humans and an alien species. "This is Captain Moon of the Earth Defense Fleet. We received your distress call. We're here to help." The silence that followed seemed to last forever. Moon could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. Around him, the bridge crew held their breath. Finally, the alien spoke again, but this time its voice was barely a whisper. "Earth, the death world. You actually came." "We came," Moon confirmed, trying to keep his voice steady. "Tell us about these machines." The alien's form seemed to brighten slightly, as if hope was literally flowing through its crystalline body. Please, wait. I must contact our fleet. Coordinator. The screen changed to show a different being, clearly older and more experienced. This one's crystalline form was larger and more complex, with patterns of light that seemed to indicate age and wisdom. When it spoke, its voice carried the weight of authority. I am Elder Cathara, coordinator of the Volani refugee fleet, it said formally. Your reputation precedes you, warriors of Earth. We have heard the Council's reports about your kind. They say you are killers from a world of endless war, apex predators who know only violence. Moon felt his crew tense around him. This was the moment that would define humanity's relationship with the galaxy. Elder Cathara, we are what our world made us. But we came here to help, not to harm. The alien elder's expression was hard too. But Moon could see something that might have been desperate hope. We are beyond caring about your nature, humans. Our worlds are dying. Our people are scattered across space in ships that were never meant to carry so many. The harvesters have consumed everything we built over thousands of years. Tell us about these harvesters, Moon said. What are we facing? Elder Cathara's form darkened. They are machines, but not like any technology we understand. They learn. They adapt. They consume. Our greatest weapons became useless after the first few battles. They turned our own tactics against us. Can you stop them? The elder asked, and Moon could hear the desperation in its voice. Your reputation suggests you fight differently than we do. You use chaos where we use order. You embrace violence where we seek harmony. Moon looked around his bridge at his crew. These were good people, trained diplomats and peacekeepers. But they were also human, and they carried with them the legacy of a world that had forged them in constant struggle. We can try, Moon said simply. But we'll need to know everything about them. Every detail, every weakness you've discovered. Elder. Cathara's form brightened again, and perhaps there is hope after all. Welcome to the Kepler system, warriors of Earth. We pray your reputation is well earned. The main briefing room aboard the flagship Defiant was packed with the best military minds humanity had to offer. Captain after captain filled the chairs around the massive holographic display table, their faces grim as they studied the enemy they were about to face. The air was thick with tension, and the quiet hum of advanced technology commander Sio Hoyanwu stood at the center of the room, his hands moving across the control interface as he brought up the tactical data. The holographic display came alive with recorded footage from the Volani battles, showing scenes of destruction that made even these hardened warriors pause. Gentlemen and ladies, Sio began, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent 20 years analyzing alien combat tactics. What we're looking at isn't just another enemy fleet. These harvester machines represent something entirely new in galactic warfare. The display showed the first recorded encounter between Volani forces and the harvesters. The alien ships moved, in perfect formation, their energy weapons creating beautiful patterns of light as they fired. For a moment, it looked like they were winning. The harvester units, sleek, insectoid machines the size of office buildings, seemed to take damage from the initial assault. This is the first minute of combat. Volani energy weapons are having an effect. The harvester shields are taking damage. Some units are even being destroyed. The captains leaned forward, studying the tactical display. Captain Kim Jun-ho of the destroyer Swift Strike pointed at the screen. Their formations are too rigid. Any human commander would have broken formation by now, tried to confuse the enemy. That's exactly the point, Sio replied. Now watch what happens in the second engagement just 6 hours later. The display switched to show the same Volani fleet attacking a different group of harvester units. This time the results were completely different. The energy weapon struck the harvester shields and simply ... stopped. The beams of light hit the mechanical units and dispersed harmlessly, like water hitting a mirror. They adapted, whispered Captain Park Min-soo of the cruiser. Thunder. In 6 hours, they completely adapted to the enemy weapons. It gets worse, Sio said grimly. By the third engagement, the harvesters had not only adapted their shields, they had learned to redirect the energy weapons back at the Volani ships. They turned the aliens' own weapons against them, Chief Science Officer Bei Yun-kyung stepped forward, her tablet displaying detailed scans of the harvester units. She was brilliant, one of the few humans who had managed to study alien technology in any detail. Her analysis could mean the difference between victory and defeat. I've spent the last 18 hours studying every piece of data the Villani gave us, she announced. These machines aren't just adapting randomly. They're learning from each encounter and sharing that knowledge across their entire network. When one unit learns something, they all learn it. The implications hit the room like a physical blow. Fighting an enemy that learned from every battle was bad enough. Fighting an enemy where every single unit shared that knowledge was terrifying. Hull composition actually changes based on the weapons used against them, Bei continued. When hit by energy weapons, they develop materials that absorb and redirect that energy. When hit by explosive weapons, they develop armor that disperses the blast. Captain Oh Seung-ho of the heavy cruiser Vengeance leaned back in his chair. He was a veteran of the asteroid wars, known for his aggressive tactics and refusal to back down from any fight, so they're basically unbeatable? Against conventional galactic warfare, yes, Bei replied. But look at this structural analysis. She highlighted certain areas of the harvester design. They're optimized for energy absorption and redirection. Their entire defensive system is based on dealing with energy weapons. Fleet Admiral Lee studied the data with the eye of someone who had spent 40 years in military service. He had fought in every major human conflict of the past 2 decades, and he understood something about warfare that the aliens didn't. They expect their enemies to fight with honor and predictability, he said slowly. The galactic species all fight the same way. Organized formations, energy weapons, defensive shields. They follow rules. The harvesters have adapted to expect that kind of warfare, Bei confirmed. They've never faced kinetic weapons, actual bullets and shells. They've never dealt with ramming attacks, psychological warfare, or guerrilla tactics. Captain, O's expression changed from concern to something much more dangerous. Then we don't use known patterns. We use human patterns. Chaos, unpredictability, and maximum violence. Exactly, Admiral Lee nodded. The galaxy calls us Deathworlders, because we don't fight fair. We fight to win, using whatever methods work. Machines have never faced anything like that. Commander SEO pulled up tactical simulations showing human combat doctrine. While the aliens fight in formations, we fight as individuals. What? They use energy weapons. We use kinetic weapons. While they follow rules, we break them. The harvesters are designed to counter predictable enemies, Admiral Lee continued. But humans are anything but predictable. We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every day. We learned to be adaptable, creative, and utterly ruthless when necessary. Captain Kim raised his hand. What about their learning ability? I won't. They adapt to our tactics too. Probably, Admiral Lee admitted. But adaptation takes time. And humans have one advantage. These machines don't understand. We can change our tactics in the middle of battle. We can be completely unpredictable. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. They were about to face an enemy that had defeated the combined might of the galactic fleet. But they were also about to show that enemy something it had never seen before. The fury of Earth's children. They've never faced Deathworlders before, Admiral Lee said quietly. Time to teach them why the galaxy fears us. It's the mining world. Aveltar had once been a peaceful place where the Villani extracted rare crystals from deep underground. Now it looked like something from a nightmare. Half the planet's surface was gone, replaced by strange geometric patterns that hurt to look at. The harvester swarm moved across the remaining landscape like a plague of mechanical insects, each one the size of a city building. Admiral Lee stood on the bridge of the flagship Defiant, watching the enemy through the main display. The harvesters moved in perfect formation, thousands of them working together with mechanical precision. Every movement was calculated, every action coordinated with mathematical perfection. They're beautiful in a terrifying way, whispered Captain Jung Woo-jin of the cruiser Stormcloud. Look how they move together, like they're all part of one giant machine. That's exactly what they are, Admiral Lee replied. That's going to be their weakness. They think like machines, but we think like humans. The human fleet hung in space at the edge of the planet's gravity well, 300 ships ready for battle. Any alien commander would have organized them into neat formations, assigned specific roles, and advanced according to established military doctrine. But Admiral Lee had different ideas. All ships, weapons free, he commanded over the fleet communication channel. Show them what chaos looks like. What happened next would have horrified any galactic military observer. The human fleet didn't advance in formation. Instead, they scattered like a pack of wild animals, each ship heading off in a different direction. There was no coordination, no apparent plan. It's pure aggressive chaos. Captain Lim Jae-sung of the heavy cruiser Iron Fist was the first to engage. His ship dove toward the planet at maximum speed, ignoring the neat formations the harvesters had prepared. The main railgun charged up and fired, sending a tungsten rod the size of a telephone pole through space at incredible speed. The results were immediate and devastating. The tungsten rod punched through 3 harvester units like they were made of paper. The mechanical beings had shields designed to deflect energy beams, but they had no defense against a solid projectile moving at significant fractions of light speed. Direct hit, shouted Tactical Officer Yoon Sung-hoon, his voice filled with excitement. Their shields didn't even activate. They can't stop kinetic weapons. The harvesters tried to respond, but human tactics defied everything in their programming. They were designed to fight enemies that followed rules that moved in predictable patterns. Instead, they faced ships that seemed to attack randomly, with no apparent coordination. Captain Park Du-haen of the destroyer Lightning decided to try something that would have gotten him court-martialed in any other fleet. He aimed his ship directly at a harvester cruiser and pushed the engines to maximum power. "All crew to escape pods," he announced calmly. "We're going to ram them." The crew evacuated in record time, leaving only Park and his navigation officer to guide the ship. At the last second, they ejected in an emergency pod while the Lightning's reactor went critical. The explosion took out not just the target cruiser, but an entire formation of harvester units that had been moving in perfect coordination. "They're trying to analyze our attack patterns," reported Lieutenant Choi Selji from the Fleet Intelligence Center, "but we're not using patterns. We're just ... attacking." That was the genius of human warfare. While other species fought according to rules and formations, humans fought like the predators they were. Every ship captain was making independent decisions, attacking targets of opportunity, using whatever tactics seemed to work at the moment, Captain. Yam Young-soo of the cruiser Thunderstrike coordinated what looked like a pincer movement with 2 other ships. But halfway through the maneuver, he abandoned the plan and turned it into a swirling melee. Human ships used their superior maneuverability to stay inside the harvester's turning radius, pounding them with close-range kinetic weapons. The harvester formations began to break apart. These machines were designed to fight in coordination, but human tactics made coordination impossible. Every time they tried to form up, another human ship would attack from an unexpected angle. "Look at them," Admiral Lee said, watching the tactical display. "They're confused. They don't understand how we fight." Captain Kim Soo-ho of the destroyer Rapid Fire demonstrated exactly what the Admiral meant. His ship suddenly stopped in the middle of a charge, rotated 90 degrees, and launched a full spread of missiles at a harvester formation that thought it was safe. The missiles were old-fashioned explosive warheads, not the energy weapons the harvesters expected. "The enemy is in disarray," announced Fleet Tactical Control. "Multiple harvester formations are breaking apart. They're falling back to regroup." Admiral Lee smiled grimly as he watched the mechanical units retreat. For the first time in their existence, the harvesters were learning what it meant to face an enemy that didn't follow the rules. "They're learning that Deathworlders don't fight fair," he said quietly. "We don't fight for glory or honor. We fight to win, and we'll use whatever methods work." The first engagement was over, but it was just the beginning. The harvesters would adapt, they would learn, but they would also discover that humans could adapt faster. The galaxy was about to learn why Earth had produced the most dangerous warriors in known space. The Valmiron Nebula had once been a beautiful sight. Clouds of colorful gas and dust stretched across space like a cosmic painting. Now it housed something far more sinister. Deep within the swirling gases, the harvesters had built a massive manufacturing facility that was converting the nebula's stellar matter into new war machines. Admiral Lee stood on the bridge of the Defiant, studying the tactical display with growing concern. The facility was enormous, easily the size of a small moon, and it was protected by thousands of mechanical guardians. Worse yet, new harvester units were being produced and launched from the facility every few minutes. Intelligence reports the facility has been operational for 3 weeks, announced Captain Yang Donghain, the fleet's tactical coordinator. At current production rates, they'll have replaced all their losses from the Veltar engagement within days. The Admiral nodded grimly. The first battle had been a victory. But it was meaningless if the enemy could simply build new units faster than humans could destroy them. They needed to take out the source. Sir, I'm detecting new shield configurations on the Guardian units. Yang continued, highlighting the defensive systems on the tactical display. They've adapted to our kinetic weapons. Those shields are specifically designed to deflect solid projectiles. Admiral Lee studied the data with the eye of someone who had spent a lifetime adapting to changing threats. The harvesters had learned from their defeat, just as everyone expected they would, but humans had learned something too. Then we adapt. 2, he said simply. All ships, implement Protocol Omega. Protocol Omega was something that had been developed during the journey to the Kepler system. It was a battle plan that no alien military would have even considered, because it required a level of coordination and sacrifice that went beyond normal military doctrine. The human fleet immediately split into 3 groups. The first group, consisting of the heaviest ships, formed up behind Captain Moon's diplomatic vessel Harmony. It seemed strange to put a diplomatic ship in the lead, but Moon had volunteered for the most dangerous job. Group Alpha, you're with me, Moon announced over the fleet channel. We're going to give them something to think about. The second group, led by Captain Osungho's heavy cruiser Vengeance, began moving toward the nebula's edge. The swirling gases and electromagnetic interference would make it difficult for the harvesters to track their movement. Group Beta, maintain communication silence, O ordered. We're going to use the nebula's interference to mask our approach. The third group was the most dangerous assignment of all. Captain Lim Jae-sung, whose ship had been damaged in the previous battle, had volunteered to lead a group of volunteers, in what everyone knew was likely a suicide mission. Group Gamma, final equipment check, Lim announced calmly. Make sure those antimatter warheads are properly secured. We're only going to get one chance at this. The plan was simple in concept, but terrifying in execution. Group Alpha would attack the Guardians head-on, drawing their attention and forcing them to concentrate their defenses. Group Beta would use the nebula's interference to approach the facility from its blind spot. Group Gamma would load their ships with antimatter warheads and make ramming attacks on the facility's critical systems. Remember, Admiral Lee broadcasted to the entire fleet. His voice carrying across 300 ships, we're not just fighting for the Vellani, we're fighting for the right of all species to exist without fear. Make every shot count. The battle began with Group Alpha's frontal assault. Captain Moon's ships charged directly at the Guardian formations, their kinetic weapons blazing. The new harvester shields deflected many of the projectiles, but the sheer volume of fire was overwhelming. They're concentrating on us, Moon reported, his ship shaking under enemy fire. Good. Keep them focused while the others move into position. Meanwhile, Group Beta was using the nebula's natural interference to mask their approach. The swirling gases played havoc with sensors, making it difficult for the harvesters to track individual ships. Captain O's force moved like ghosts through the cosmic dust. We're in position, O reported quietly, beginning an attack on the facility's outer defenses. The most dangerous part of the plan was Group Gamma's mission. Captain Lim's volunteers had loaded their ships with antimatter warheads, weapons powerful enough to crack a moon in half. The plan was to ram these ships directly into the facility's critical systems. First wave, going in, Lim announced. 3 ships accelerated toward the facility at maximum speed, their crews having already evacuated 2 other vessels. The antimatter explosions lit up the nebula like miniature suns. The battle was brutal and costly. Human ships exploded in brilliant flashes as they overwhelmed Harvester defenses through sheer determination and willingness to sacrifice.
Ow.
But for every human vessel lost, dozens of Harvester units fell to concentrated fire. Manufacturing facility is taking damage, reported Lieutenant Commander Park Yeon-soo from the Tactical Center. Their production rate is dropping significantly. Keep the pressure on, Admiral Lee ordered, watching the tactical display as his forces press their attack. We break their ability to replace losses. We win the war. The facility's destruction would cripple the Harvester war machine, but it came at a terrible cost. Dozens of human ships were lost, hundreds of crew members killed or wounded. Had proven something important, the Harvesters could be beaten. If humans were willing to pay the price, the asteroid should have been just another piece of space rock floating in the void. Instead, it had become the heart of a nightmare. The Harvesters had hollowed out the massive asteroid and turned it into their command center, technological fortress that controlled their entire war machine across multiple star systems. Admiral Lee stood on the bridge of the Defiant, staring at the tactical display with a mixture of determination and dread. The asteroid fortress was enormous, easily 50 kilometers across, and it was surrounded by the largest concentration of Harvester units they had ever seen. Long-range scans are complete, reported Commander Seo Hyun-woo, his voice tight with tension. The fortress contains what appears to be the central intelligence controlling the entire Harvester network. If we can destroy it, we might be able to shut down their entire operation. What's the bad news? Admiral Lee asked, though he already knew the answer wouldn't be good. It's defended by their entire remaining fleet, Seo continued. Over 10,000 units. Every Harvester that survived our previous battles is guarding that fortress. The tactical display showed the enemy formation, a massive sphere of mechanical units, surrounding the asteroid like a protective shell. They had learned from their previous defeats and were no longer relying on predictable formations. Instead, they had created overlapping fields of fire that would make any approach incredibly dangerous. Captain Park Soo-min, commander of the Marine Assault Force, studied the fortress structure on his personal display. He was a veteran of the asteroid mining wars, experienced in zero-gravity combat and boarding actions. This mission, however, was unlike anything he had ever attempted. Admiral, even if we break through their defenses, that fortress is going to be heavily defended on the inside, Park said. My Marines can handle it, but we'll need a clear path to get there. Then we go through them, Admiral Lee stated simply, his voice carrying the quiet confidence of someone who had never backed down from a fight. Captain Park, take your Marines and prepare for boarding action. The rest of us will clear you a path. The human fleet began its final approach, moving in a wedge formation that concentrated their firepower on the enemy's center. It was a classic military tactic, designed to punch through enemy lines with overwhelming force. But the Harvesters had learned from their previous encounters with human tactics. They're ready for us this time, observed Captain Nam Young-soo, studying the enemy response. Look at those shield configurations. They've been modified to handle kinetic weapons. Their formations are showing tactical flexibility. Harvesters were no longer moving in perfect mechanical precision. Instead, they were adapting their positions in real time, creating defensive patterns that would be difficult to break through. Their learning algorithms had been working overtime, analyzing every previous battle and developing countermeasures. They're learning, Captain Nam continued, but they're still thinking like machines. They expect us to follow through with the wedge formation. Admiral Lee smiled grimly. The Harvesters had learned to counter human tactics, but they had made one crucial mistake. They assumed humans would stick to a plan once they started it. Then we think like humans, Lee replied. All ships, execute Pattern Chaos 7. Pattern Chaos 7 was exactly what it sounded like. Organized chaos. The human fleet suddenly broke formation, abandoning the wedge attack and scattering in all directions. Each ship began attacking independent targets, using whatever tactics seemed appropriate at the moment. The Harvester's carefully coordinated response collapsed instantly. Their defensive algorithms were designed to handle organized attacks, not hundreds of individual ships all acting independently. They tried to track every threat at once and ended up effectively tracking none of them. "Breakthrough," shouted Captain Moon from the Harmony. "The enemy line is collapsing." Captain Park's assault shuttles used the chaos to punch through the enemy defenses. His Marines were loaded into dozens of small, fast ships that could slip through the gaps in the Harvester formation. They were armed with electromagnetic pulse weapons and kinetic assault rifles, tools specifically designed to fight mechanical enemies. "Marine assault forces through the perimeter," Park reported over the fleet communication channel. "Beginning. Boarding action now." The boarding action was unlike anything in military history. Human soldiers fought their way through mechanical corridors while the fleet provided cover fire from outside. The fortress interior was a maze of alien technology, with mechanical defenders around every corner.
Oh.
These corridors weren't designed. 4 biological beings, reported Sergeant Kim Hwai-young, leading the first assault team. "Everything is at weird angles and sizes. But that's working in our favor. The defenders can't move as effectively as we can." The Marines pushed deeper into the fortress, using explosives to blast through barriers and electromagnetic pulse grenades to disable mechanical defenders. The fighting was fierce in close quarters, exactly the kind of combat that humans excelled. "I've reached the core chamber," Captain Park reported over the com, his voice strained from the battle. "The central intelligence is here. It's enormous, like a mechanical brain the size of a building." "Set the charges and get out, Admiral," Lee ordered. "We'll cover your extraction."
Already on it.
Park replied. "Charges set for maximum yield. All teams, evacuate now." The explosion could be seen from across the star system. The Harvester Command Nexus detonated in a brilliant flash that briefly outshone the system's star. The massive asteroid fortress broke apart, sending debris flying in all directions, and then something amazing happened. Across the battlefield, mechanical units began shutting down as their controlling intelligence died. The Harvesters had been defeated not by superior firepower, but by human courage and determination. 3 months had passed since the destruction of the Harvester Command Nexus, and the galaxy was still trying to understand what had happened. Admiral Lee stood in a place he had never imagined he would see: the Galactic Council chambers on the neutral world of Centauri Prime. The massive chamber was filled with representatives from dozens of different species, all watching him with expressions that ranged from respect to barely concealed fear. The chamber itself was a marvel of alien architecture. The ceiling stretched up into darkness, supported by pillars that seemed to be made of crystallized light. Representatives sat in sections designed for their specific biology, some in pools of liquid, others in gravity-controlled environments, and a few in chambers filled with different atmospheric mixes. Admiral Lee of the Earth Defense Fleet announced the chamber's AI system. "Please present your final report on the Harvester conflict." Lee stepped forward to the central podium, feeling the weight of history on his shoulders. For 50 years, humans had been banned from this chamber, considered too dangerous to participate in galactic civilization. Now he was here as a hero, representing the species that had saved 17 worlds from complete destruction. "The Harvester threat has been eliminated," he reported, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation systems. "All mechanical units have been confirmed, destroyed, or deactivated. 17 worlds have been liberated from Harvester control, and Villani reconstruction efforts are already underway with human engineering assistance." A murmur ran through the assembled representatives. The scale of the victory was still difficult. For many species to comprehend, the Harvesters had been considered unstoppable, a threat that had forced the entire galactic community to consider evacuation to other star systems. Elder Cathara stepped forward from the Villani section, her crystalline form shimmering with emotion. Since the liberation of her people, she had become one of humanity's strongest advocates in the galactic community. "The Villani people offer formal alliance with Earth," she announced, her voice carrying the weight of her species' gratitude. "You have proven that Deathworlders can be protectors as well as warriors. Your reputation spoke of violence and chaos, but you brought us salvation and hope. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. A formal alliance between the Villani and Earth would be the first such agreement between humans and any galactic species. It would fundamentally change the balance of power in the galaxy. Counselor Murtani of the Galactic Defense Force spoke next. He was a tall, elegant being with features that seemed to shift like flowing water. His species had been responsible for much of the galaxy's military doctrine, and they had been humbled by humanity's success where their forces had failed. The Council recognizes Earth's military prowess, he said, his voice carefully diplomatic. We would like to discuss mutual defense agreements. The galaxy faces many threats, and your unconventional methods have proven remarkably effective. Admiral Lee nodded diplomatically, but his expression remained serious. Earth is willing to discuss such arrangements. But understand we fight. On our terms, with our methods, we don't follow your rules of war. The statement sent another murmur through the chamber. The galactic community had spent thousands of years developing rules of engagement, codes of honor, and limitations on warfare. The idea of abandoning those principles was both terrifying and appealing. We're beginning to understand, Counselor. Murtani replied quietly, that your methods are more effective than our rules. The harvesters adapted to our predictable tactics, but they couldn't counter your chaos. Representative Zorkan of the Hegemony Defense Council, a species known for their military tradition, leaned forward. Your tactics violated every principle of honorable warfare. You used deception, sacrificed your own ships, and showed no mercy to defeated enemies. And it worked. Admiral Lee replied simply. Honor doesn't matter when an entire species is facing extinction. Results matter. The debate continued for hours, with representatives from various species asking questions about human military doctrine, requesting assistance with their own security problems, and trying to understand how a species banned from galactic society had become its savior. As the formal ceremonies concluded, Captain Moon approached the Admiral. He had been promoted to diplomatic liaison between Earth and the galactic community, a position that didn't exist 3 months ago. Sir, long range. Sensors are picking up distress signals from the Andromeda sector, he reported quietly. Another species under attack by unknown aggressors, requesting immediate assistance. Admiral Lee looked out through the chamber's massive windows at the stars beyond. The galaxy was vast, filled with countless species trying to survive, in a universe that seemed determined to destroy them. For 50 years, humanity had been isolated, forced to watch from the sidelines while others fought and died. Signal the fleet, he said with a grim smile. It seems the galaxy has more work for its monsters. The age of human isolation was over. The galaxy now knew that when civilizations faced extinction, they could call upon the Deathworlders of Earth. And the fleet would respond. Humanity had found its place in the galactic community, not as the dangerous savages they were feared to be, but as the protectors who would fight impossible battles to save innocent lives. The monsters from the Deathworld had become the galaxy's guardians, and the universe would never be the same.